Travis Scott and Quavo have recently dropped their highly anticipated collaboration album, Huncho Jack, Jack Huncho. Now this was released with pretty much little to no official announcement. It was announced like maybe one day before, as is to be expected with releases from these guys, but it was my expectations were definitely high going into this. And we know these guys have been working on this album for a while. So is it good? Well, this is CDTVProductions, and let's talk about this album.
Hands on your knees, came up out the trees, everything achieved, bless me with the keys, never wanna leave, yeah, Lambo driving, you pedestrian.
This tape had so much damn potential. Like, I was really excited for this. I love Travis Scott's music, and even though Quavo is my least favorite member of the Migos, I still kind of enjoy him. I like his voice. And I really liked when he did Oh My Decide with Travis Scott. That was a fantastic song. But there's a few things that make this tape quite disappointing in my opinion. I think one of the hugest things that hold this back is the lack of variety. Now I think it's necessary for me to say I usually love how Travis's and Quavius's autotune sounds, but that's what really holds them back here. They pretty much use their standard autotune voices throughout the whole project, and it gets incredibly tedious by the end of it all.
Plastic, put it on her tongue and now she dancing. Gave her everything, now what you asking? Kick her out the spot. Go. I pay my bills in cash, 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 cash. Go, 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 go. Drop from the hills to the mall.
You see, one of the best things about Travis for me is his vocal experimentation and how he stacks multiple different effects on top of his autotune, maybe adding like a reverb effect or like a vocoder as well as the autotune. But there's almost none of that here. It's just Travis rapping with normal autotune, and it's quite disappointing. Not to mention, we all know that both Quavo and Travis can do a bit of rapping without autotune fairly well. So maybe if they drop the autotune on a couple of tracks, that would have sounded interesting, but it's just so cookie cutter. Honestly, by the time you get to the second half, the album just really kind of starts to drag on. And it's not like it can be saved by the features because there's only 2 of them. Now granted, Takeoff completely kills his verse. He was really damn good on here, but Offset's verse was a little short and underwhelming. Also, Takeoff and Offset both used autotune, so their verses really weren't as varied or as standout as they could have been. Like, this whole tape is pretty much autotune, so the fact that the only 2 guest verses used autotune, it really took away the opportunity for those tracks to sound different.
When they don't got ties. Flip it like it's 5 guys. I'm Tupac, get all eyes. Came from the land of the no. Whipping a pan on the stove. Whip it till your hand grow more.
In terms of what could make this project better, I'd say there's a lot they could have done. Maybe just make it a bit shorter and make it an EP. Maybe add some more features to give it a few more different sounds throughout the album. Or maybe just at least have a few different, like, kind of tones throughout it. It's pretty much just like a one-tone banger album. The way it is, it just didn't meet my expectation. Now, that's not to say that I hated all of it, because there are a few things that I think are quite good about it. One of the things that usually is a strong point with the kind of albums that are like this is the production, and that is no different for this tape. As pretty much the whole album is just stacked with bangers, the production fits this really well, and it means we get a lot of good beats throughout the album. A couple beats weren't what I expected either. Modern Slavery started off with these kind of jazz sounding instruments, which I thought was very interesting. And How You Feel had this kind of woodwind instrumental at the start. I don't know if it actually is a woodwind instrumental. There's some instruments that I'm just terrible with identifying what they are. But whatever that was, it was really nice and it was incorporated really well into the beat. Then also there was Black and Chinese, which had this kind of Asian sitar instrument at the start, which I also think was put into the beat quite well, and it was really fitting for what the track was called. I guess my only issue is that a couple of the beats do sound kind of similar, but it's not as big of an issue as the lack of vocal variety is. I also think the flows throughout this song are pretty solid as a whole. There were a couple I feel I'd heard before. For example, on Modern Slavery, Quavius uses this cadence, which is very similar to what he used on the Big Sean song Sacrifices.
If I let my gang out, bow down, come round. Left hand got 3 rings, that's brum brum, we up 1.
And Travis sounds just like he does on the song Nightcrawler with Where You From.
Freaks got me geek, energy, suck it out of me.
But as a whole, the flows work just as well as they need to. The highlight in this regard was definitely Travis's performance on the closing track, Best Man. That was a much needed boost of energy, but unfortunately it came a little too late, as like I said, that was the final track. There are also some songs here that I'll definitely add to my playlists because a lot of these songs do sound good on their own. The first 3 or 4 tracks on the project especially are really good. I haven't really touched that much on that point so far, but I really did enjoy the first 3 or 4 tracks, and at that point the sound of it still sounded kind of fresh. Like, there were some tracks on here that really just had me like just bopping my head to them, but it's just back to back on an album. A lot of these tracks get pretty tiring. So as a score for this album, I'm gonna give it a 5.7 out of 10. There's a few tracks on here that I can throw on if I want to get hyped up or hear a banger, but I have to take everything into consideration and grade it as an album. And as a whole, it's really not as strong as it could have been, and it just feels like it fell a little bit short. I do really like Quavo's and Travis's voices on here, but they don't really do much with it. And I wouldn't say this tape is terrible, like I would never call it trash, but it's definitely not golden either. Oh My This Side was a fantastic Travis Scott and Quavo track. It shows that they can make a pretty interesting, kind of experimental and dark banger, but there's not much of that to be found on the Jack Huncho tape. So what did you guys think of this project? Like I said, I was kind of disappointed with it, but there were a few tracks I got out of it that I did enjoy. That's pretty much my thoughts on it. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Obviously, I'm still excited to hear what Travis and Quavo do in the future. Maybe if they do a second collaboration project as a duo, it'll be more varied, because that was pretty much the main issue with this project. But thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll hopefully see you all in the next one. I'll have my best and worst of the year lists coming up very soon. And that's all I've got to say for now, guys. You can follow me on my Instagram under the name CDTVProductions, and this is CDTV Productions, signing out.